Hi, welcome to the Women of Purpose podcast. I'm Shar Pittman, and with me today I have my friend and mentor, Kim Angulo.
Hi, very good to be here today. It's a pleasure to be with you, Shar, in this Women of Purpose episode. So we've known each other for many years. Actually, we met in Argentina. That's
right.
That's amazing to think that we live probably 5 miles apart and we ended up meeting in Argentina. So my husband and I are founders of World Harvest in Argentina, which is actually the founding church of World Harvest. And we've been down in Argentina for over approximately about 35 years. So we moved down when our children were very, very small, and they're all married now with kids. So we have 11 grandkids, 12 with the 12th on the way. Yeah. And so it's just been fun. It's just been fun. And it's been fun and growing our relationship together.
Yeah, it's been really fun. So you think 15 years we've been?
Oh, I would probably a little bit more. Yeah, probably maybe, just a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe 18, something like that. Yeah, it's been really fun to watch, to be in relationship and to grow together. You've been a real inspiration to me. You've been a mentor and like a mom, but we're close in age. So not really a mom.
No, not really a mom. When people say she's my mom, it's kind of like people look at you and say,
awkward.
What?
Yeah.
But Shar, relationships are so important because I think our relationship, even though you say that I'm your mentor, when you have people that you're able to mentor, that also causes you to grow. Yeah. So I've grown through our relationship too. And it's really, you challenging, asking questions and stuff like that causes, people who are mentors to other people to really grow too. And so it's been a blessing on both ways.
Yeah, definitely. You've been very patient with me. And I'm very thankful. Thankful because I need a lot of patience.
Relationship.
So I'm so glad that you're here visiting. You and your husband, Martine, are here visiting for a week. And so you said yes to being a part of this podcast, this episode of Women of Purpose, and we're excited. Today we're going to talk about the topic of anxiety and fear and worry. And so, especially in the time that we're in right now, with the way that things are going, just coming out of a pandemic, and you were just here in November, and you had all kinds of requirements to even get here in the States, and things are lifting a little bit as far as things like that. But I believe the residue of that is still permeating our nation as well as I'm sure
as in Argentina too. There is, with the whole issue, I think we in Argentina were locked down a little bit longer. I think we were one of the countries that had the longest lockdown, which didn't really help with the whole COVID thing. But anyways, you can see how it is been very hard on people to come back out into a normal life. And people are still staying away from large groups and stuff like that, and just all the things that this has provoked economically, relationally. There's a lot of at least down in Argentina, one of the things too that was has actually on the statistics is the alcohol consumption has grown a whole bunch, and also marital problems, because there was a lot of people home living together. I mean, husband and wife, but because they were, that just brought a lot of conflict, and, people didn't have their own space and stuff like that. And so that has brought on a lot of anxiety. So you start worrying about things, and then that turns into anxiety, and anxiety goes into fear. So it's just, they're three enemies, friends that travel together.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And talking about anxiety, what is the definition?
Well, one of the things of anxiety, because, you can worry, you can have a little bit of worry or even just a little bit of anxiety, but anxiety is really excessive and persistent worry about something. Yeah. So it you start being concerned about something that turns into worry,
Yeah.
and then it becomes excessive
Yeah.
and persistent. And it becomes excessive and persistent because that's what we focus on. And when we focus on it, whatever we focus on, we empower.
Yep.
And it becomes bigger. And it becomes bigger than what it really is. But to the person who has that perception, that is the reality. That's what they really are seeing.
Yeah, that's so true. I heard somebody say that the acronym of fear is false evidence appearing real.
Yes.
And the
that's
more
very
that
good.
you focus on it, like you said, the more that you think about it. And I like the way excessive thinking
Yes.
and persistent thinking about something that may never even happen.
Yeah. And on top of that, one of the definitions, like with the anxiety, it's excessive and persistent worry about everyday situations. So we're not even talking about, situations that are extreme or different things like that. It starts out with everyday life.
Yeah.
And you start, becoming worried, excessive worry about it, persistent worry about it, and it turns into anxiety. I was reading a statistic that says that 40 million Americans suffer from anxiety.
Wow.
And only 35% of them actually realize and that they need help getting over it. So you've got all these people that do have anxiety issues, and they don't realize that really they do need help getting out of it.
Right. And we don't want to deny that anxiety exists, and you don't want to deny that it's not a real issue.
No.
But what we do want to do with this episode is deny its power in our life.
Exactly. Because one of the thing is it's a reality. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is something that we really are confronting, but it is not the higher truth. Mm-hmm. So, for some people, that's really hard to say, but this is real. This is the situation. But there is a truth that is higher that I can choose so that I will not be, limited because, people lose their freedom. They lose their power to make decisions. They become, anxiety ends up, even though anxiety is probably, more emotional health, but it does affect people physically.
Right. And one of the things is we don't want people to, I think some things, counseling and things like that is really a good thing, but I think the world would want us to embrace the anxiety, embrace the worry. In other words, we focus on how to live with anxiety, to live with worry, to live with fear. But I'm hoping and I believe that by the end of this episode, that we will give women tools on how to not live with anxiety, fear, and worry, because we're going to give them, like you said, the truth of these things might be a reality in our life, and we might have some of the what do you call it, the manifestations of it. But there's hope. And I think what the world wants to tell people in situations like this is the world's not going to get any better. Well, it doesn't matter how the world gets. It's how we can.
It's how we
can live and be in this world, but not have the anxiety and the fear and the worry that permeates through. You just have to walk into Walmart and see and feel fear and worry and anxiety on people.
Yeah. And I think too, it's important to realize that, if I just try to dominate or control anxiety rather than overcoming it, and I mean, and everybody experiences anxiety to one degree or in another, just like a job interview can cause anxiety, for example.
A podcast can cause anxiety.
That's true. we can attest to that,
Yeah.
But there is an anxiety that is kind of natural, and you just have to face whatever the challenge is and overcome it. But it's very different when you're trying to dominate an excessive, persistent worry about everyday living. Because you're taking a whole lot of energy to dominate that and to try to discipline yourself in the way you handle it, and that ends up robbing us from what is really hope and joy and well-being.
Yeah.
And so, we're not called as people we're to be disciplined,
Yeah.
but we're not called to live a disciplined life that's focusing on controlling negative things in our life. No, we discipline ourselves to get rid of those negative things.
Right.
You know?
Right. So what do you think? Do you think that worry and anxiety come from fear? The fear of the unknown or the fear of the known, or? This is my personal perception of things, is that I believe that there are two sources that, like you can, two sources. One is either love and one is fear. And so we as people, as human beings, we are designed to operate from a source of love. So that doesn't mean we don't face negative situations. That doesn't mean we don't face adversity. It doesn't even mean that we don't face very, very terrible situations in life or trauma. But when we can draw from a source of love, which is included there, hope, truth, expectation, then, we can overcome and we can live in freedom. And then there's the other source, which is the source of fear. And most of us have been formed in that because society in general operates in fear. Like we can even look at our news channels and stuff like that. Right.
They pull off a fear.
Right.
That's their main focus.
Yeah.
And so without even realizing it, we unconsciously are formed from childhood into fear. Doctors and psychologists will say a child learns fear. They're not born with it.
Wow. Yeah.
They learn
that's
it.
Powerful.
So they learn everything that we end up fearing. That is learned, or it is, it's learned because of situations or because what people tell us or whatever.
Right.
So I really believe that worry and anxiety come from that source of fear.
Definitely. I remember a story as you were talking. Our family went to Branson, Missouri, and we took the kids to an amusement park. And I am terrified of heights, terrified of roller coasters. And our oldest son, he loves roller coasters. And so he would ride with his dad because my husband loves roller coasters, which is crazy. But it's interesting because our youngest didn't really know if he was afraid of roller coasters or not. But because I remember going in Branson and going to go on a roller coaster, I was having a fit about it, which caused him to have a fit. And so he learned. So it's like I taught him how to fear something that I feared.
Yeah. And and to him, I don't know if you ever rode a roller coaster, probably did.
I did.
Bad experience because a lot of that, anxiety and stuff like that, can be, or even either unknown or come from an experience.
Right. And fear, what happens is, getting in line to go on, I ended up going on the roller coaster because I thought I'm going to make him go because I didn't want him to have my fears. And so, but as I'm standing in line, I have all of these thoughts about the roller coaster going off the rails, or you're going down and it flies off and, we're going to fly in the air and land on the, you got all of these irrational thoughts, which produce fear.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts that are not even, of course it didn't happen. We got on the roller coaster and actually it was, we got done and I thought that was really dumb because it wasn't bad, but it's irrational thinking and irrational thoughts about things that don't even,
Well, that's funny because, like when we talked at the very beginning about how worry is, it's just the everyday living and stuff. It's, it's things that a roller coaster is. I mean, I'm not saying that bad things don't happen, but, it's just like the everyday living on a roller coaster is everybody gets on and everybody gets off. And, but there's a worry there, and that worry it comes from fear.
Right. And all of those things, worry, anxiety, and fear really do steal from a woman for her to fulfill her purpose.
And it cripples. Exactly. That is a very, very good word. Yeah. It cripples us, which means we become limited.
Yeah.
We have potential.
Yeah.
We can't make decisions.
Yeah.
We will stay in a box
Yeah.
that is comfortable
Yeah.
because going outside of it produces anxiety and fear and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it is a thief. It really is.
It is a thief, and it stops as we're talking today. I'm thinking about maybe there's women listening right now that you got a desire, a passion to start your own business or go back to school or write a book or step out and do something, but there's this fear that stops you from wanting to push past that and take that risk.
Well, it really alters our perception.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
it really does alter our perception.
Yeah.
Of truth.
Yeah.
And it also affects us emotionally and how we process the situation, how we process the whatever the challenge is or whatever the change is in our life or whatever we're going through in our life. It really causes us it limits us in our ability to see beyond and to see, no, there is a life beyond this situation. I lost my job, and no, there is a good future beyond this.
Correct.
I can face this, I can go through it.
Yeah.
And it really limits our ability to see that there is a vision for a change.
Yeah. Exactly.
And there is a good future for us.
There is a good future for us. But I liked what you said, that it alters our perception. So it's like fear, anxiety, and worry become a lens that we see life through. So it not only affects myself, but it affects my relationships. Yes. It affects my performance in my job. It affects every area and aspect of my life.
And I think, Shar, one of the, I don't know if it's the worst things, but one of the things is that it's really terrible. It is that it unconsciously affects, which means I become somebody that I'm not unconsciously because there's that fear and that anxiety. And sometimes I'm probably more conscious of it, but sometimes I'm not that conscious of it. And I just have accepted that this is life like that. And so then I start becoming somebody that I'm really not, somebody who's maybe isolates himself, somebody who maybe doesn't smile as much, somebody who, is, I don't know, just all kinds of things. And, that's not who we really are.
Right. I like that, how we become, because of fear, anxiety, and worry, we become somebody we're not. But the world and what people sometimes want to tell us, it's like, this is just who you are. So let's teach you how to live with it.
Right.
And how to, how to just, live life with all of this stuff that is not ours to take on. Because, like you said earlier, fear, a little kid is not born with fear. We were never born with fear. We were not born with anxiety. I've never seen a baby worry about how they're going to get their next bottle or who's going to change my diaper.
Yeah.
It's like there's this confidence and this trust that mom and dad are going to take care of me.
Yeah.
And I think that with worry and anxiety and fear is that when we realize there has to be this moment where it's like, okay, wait a minute. And I believe that people that struggle with this, which I struggled a lot with anxiety, I mean, huge, probably how many years ago was that? 15 years ago, whatever it was. When we first took over the church, there was this huge thing that I took on myself, that was something that I needed to do. I needed to be somebody else so that,
to fit in, to do what you,
to do all that stuff. And so it produced so much anxiety in me. And fear of failure, fear of people, which caused anxiety and all the things that, that a woman especially, takes on.
Well, I remember several years back, I would wake up at night and I would just have in my stomach, like this nervousness, and stuff like that. And I really couldn't put my hand on what it was, and then, I told my husband, I said, I'm waking up at night because it was continuous. I'm waking up at night and, I got this, like you're on alert, and that's anxiety. That's anxiety. Yeah. And so I had to really search and see what I was unconsciously worrying about, because sometimes we worry about it, but we try to convince ourselves
Yeah.
of something.
Right.
You know, we're not called to convince ourselves of something. We need to see truth and allow truth to become part of us.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to, you know, convince yourself of something, you know, because that doesn't work.
Right.
Because inside of you really don't believe that.
Right.
So you're doing all this effort to try to convince yourself, you know, and so I had to really search out and find out what it was that was causing that, because that is a symptom of anxiety.
Yeah.
You know, I would wake up in the middle of the night, or, you know, like, you know, 2 or 3 in the morning, and I just, in my stomach, I could just feel, you know, like this nervousness, and then just thinking, you know, I didn't have a dream, you know,
Yeah.
what in the world?
Yeah.
And that's because anxiety
Yeah.
gets into our subconscious.
Yeah.
And we many times don't even realize what it really is
Right.
that is causing us to feel anxious.
Yeah.
Phobias are part of what is fear. And, you know, that is like an excess of what is anxiety, goes into all that and becomes a phobia.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you ask people, you know, well, you know, where did that come from? Well, how did that come? And they say, I really don't know. You know, why are you afraid of being in the crowd? You know, did something happen? No, there's nothing logical that really happened
Yeah.
for them to say, you know, I get this phobia when there's a lot of people around.
Yeah.
And that is anxiety, which is an excessive, persistent worry about everyday life.
Yeah. About everyday life. And it's irrational.
It's irrational.
It's not rational.
Right.
And
it's the worst part of it is that many times it's unconscious.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'm not conscious. It's gone way down deep into my subconscious. So really I have to start, you know, meditating and thinking. I always tell people this: you can evaluate yourself, but don't question yourself. Because when you evaluate on an objective perception and saying, okay, you start evaluating, well, was it this, is it that, or that? When you start questioning, you start doubting yourself.
Yeah. Right.
Well,
Which puts you into
know,
more anxiety.
Yeah. I'm a bad person. I just can't,
Yeah.
I don't get along with anybody. I
Right.
can never keep a true friendship, or,
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody leaves me. Everybody that loves me leaves
Yeah.
me. So people, when they question themselves, it always is putting self-doubt,
Yeah.
and that just increases
Yeah.
anxiety.
Right. Right. Yeah. Anxiety is like one of those things, like you said, it's a subconscious thing. It's something that you don't really look for and you don't understand it. And I think in women, when we do feel anxious, I know when I was going through all the anxiety, I didn't know it almost feels like you're going crazy because it's irrational thinking. And then it produces fear because you feel like something is wrong with you.
Right.
Which then spins you into worry, because then you're worried about, number one, what people are going to think, because you're having this anxiety, and you can't have anxiety. You got to,
Yeah.
what are you doing? You
Yeah,
have to have it all together,
Yeah.
And I remember talking to a counselor, again, this was probably 15 years ago. I remember sitting down talking to him, and he was just asking all these questions. And like you're talking about evaluating yourself, that's basically what he was doing, was causing me to evaluate myself. And when I realized that some of the things were just really like nonsense,
Right.
it's just like, it doesn't matter. It didn't affect me, but I was allowing things to affect me.
Right.
And when I started evaluating those things and started thinking, when I did have those feelings, I had to stop and say, okay, wait a minute. This isn't, even though the situation might have been real, it doesn't mean that it was that I had to go along with it and embrace the anxiety.
Exactly.
And so he gave me some tools on when I felt a certain way, what I needed to do.
Exactly. And I think that that's key for us, is to begin, first of all, to not deny, but
Correct.
to say, okay,
Yeah.
this is something that's happened to me. And also begin to identify when I start to feel those changes, like
Yeah.
change in my attitude.
Mhm.
I become maybe, how would you say it? crabby.
More,
all
yeah.
of a sudden there's just a change.
Yeah,
And,
crabby,
like,
sensitive. Yeah.
and also, Shar, another thing too is that when you sense a change, like, for example, if there's a conflict in a marriage, and that is producing, continual stress, anxiety, excessive, worry and stuff like that, is to begin to identify, somebody can come into the room and all of a sudden your body tenses up. And that is anxiety. And to begin to identify that and say, okay, why does that affect me? And what am I believing about this situation? And what is the truth about the situation?
Right. The truth, and what am I believing about
what am I
that?
believing, and what is the truth?
Yeah,
I
really
am
good.
a person who is empowered,
Yep.
and I can't change other people, but I can change the way I'm going to go through this.
Absolutely. And that's a really amazing that you mentioned the word empower, because that is kind of like my theme for this podcast. It's not to encourage, because encouraging is me doing something for you, but empowering is I'm here to put it on you to give you the things that you need to
exactly.
do. Because when I'm empowered with something, then it brings transformation in my life, because then I start taking responsibility for it, and not just taking encouragement, but actually taking the things and having it empower my life so that I can transform, so that I can actually enjoy my life, and as a woman fulfill my purpose. So that on that note, we're going to end this episode of the topic of fear, worry, and anxiety, and stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you for joining.